Military, politically, this was extremely rash. And it looks as if it was supposed to be part of a plan that is now not going to be executed, or if it's going to be executed, it's going to be executed badly, as it nearly always is. In other words, it's part of an invasion program for Israeli forces to go across the northern border of Israel into Lebanon to build a buffer zone to push Hezbollah militias back, so that the 60,000 Israelis that had to move out of northern Israel after Hezbollah began the attacks there after the 8th of October, after the terrible war broke out. And this is a declared aim of Netanyahu.
Yes.
And Netanyahu is now a war leader, survives, continues by war, and this is causing ructions even within his own cabinet.
Now let's welcome to the programme Robert Fox, who's a defence editor at The Standard. Hello to you, Robert.
Hello.
Hi, look, we know that cyber capabilities, Robert, are developing the entire time. Did you imagine this was possible before we got this news?
Not at that scale, but they've done it before. They've blown up one of the early, I think, Hamas leaders in 1996 by making sure that he was supplied with a mobile phone, which had a bomb in it. They do a lot of this stuff because it's very interesting that the focus has been on Mossad, which is the foreign intelligence agency, roughly equivalent to MI6 and the CIA. But we don't focus too much attention on Military Unit 8200, which is formed in the 1950s, not long after Israel became a nation. They do the surveillance. They have been involved in things like sticky bombs, the ingenious stuff, particularly in the campaign against operatives, senior scientists thought to be behind the Iranian nuclear program. They have the capability. They have the skill. They're an elite within an elite. They pick up the brightest students, the brightest graduates, and it's like sort of joining a Freemasons, 8200. You're in it for life, even if you go away and become managing director of another in civilian life. You're part of this unit, and it's got absolutely their fingerprints all over this one.
Yes.
So yes, I'm not quite as surprised as other people were. I don't want to be self-regarding and pompous about it, but they do these kind of things. But with what consequence, I think, is the big question. And that's where I rather disagree with your ambassador.
That's interesting. We'll develop that thought for us on the consequences of this. What are you thinking, Robert?
Well, now let's talk about it militarily, politically. This was extremely rash. And it looks as if it was supposed to be part of a plan that is now not going to be executed, or if it's going to be executed, it's going to be executed badly, as it nearly always is. In other words, it's part of an invasion program for Israeli forces to go across the northern border of Israel into Lebanon to build a buffer zone to push Hezbollah militias back, so that the 60,000 Israelis that had to move out of northern Israel after Hezbollah began the attacks there after the 8th of October, after the terrible war broke out. And this is a declared aim of Netanyahu.
Yes.
And Netanyahu is now a war leader, survives, continues by war, and this is causing ructions even within his own cabinet. So I think the focus should be on Israel and the complexities of this. And unfortunately, as Blinken has indicated, the international community has less and less leverage over this.
Yes, I mean it's been suggested that this operation was in one way, well, almost opportunistic. The capability was there; it had to have been invested in, had to have been set up over quite a long period. But the pressing of the button, if we're talking about simply the pressing of a button, that decision was taken quite suddenly because there was a fear that the Hezbollah
they thought they'd been found out.
Thought they'd been tumbled. Is that credible? Because whenever
I think that is entirely credible, because we know lately there has been a tremendous series of rows between Netanyahu and his defense minister, Yoav Gallant, and this is important. And he'd already brought forward somebody to come into his the war cabinet, Gideon Saar, to take over. A moderate, a right-winger, to take over as defense minister and say, no, we're going ahead. They've been discussing the northern option, as it were, the northern action, for about 8 or 10 months now. Now, why is the hesitancy about this?
Yes.
Because it's dangerous. Israel has done this. I was calculating this going back to 1978, up to the Litani River, then going as far as to Beirut in 1982, and then a disastrous war for both sides in 2006 with Hezbollah. These things do not have a very good track record.
Yes.
And I think that that is what's concerning. And I don't think, for all the bluster and bluff, I don't think Israel, for a long time, can sustain a war on three fronts. And that is what they're in now,
Right,
because it's war on the West Bank, there's war in Gaza, and we're now facing ramping up the war in the north. And that will have consequences because Iran will get the Houthis going even further. We know Iran and Russia are building a port in the Red Sea around Port Sudan. And so, to say sit on our hands, which I'm afraid is the body language from Biden and from Starmer, particularly after that no announcement meeting in Washington. Our indecision is final.
Yes.
It's absolutely no good because events are running away, not only in the Middle East, Lebanon and Israel, but also in Ukraine right now. They've got to get a bit proactive. And this is a real wake-up call that we've got from Israel and Lebanon.
Really interesting take. So hesitation and disagreements high up in the Israeli command structure. Robert Fox, good to talk to you. Thank you. Now, another 3 people are reported to have been killed. And yesterday, of course, we were bringing you the news of explosions killing 12 people so far, injuring almost 3,000. Major General Tim Cross is on the line, of course, retired British Army officer, regular friend of this programme, military logistics expert. Hello to you, Tim.
Hello, John. Good evening.
Evening to you, Tim. Did you have any notion at all that it was possible to launch a cyber strike of this kind today and yesterday before you saw?
Well, the honest truth is yes, but the extent of it and the way it's been conducted and carried out is pretty extraordinary and pretty impressive. I mean, cyber is, there's virtually nothing that is secure nowadays in terms of the cyber world. I mean, criminals are finding that in the gangs and the criminality that's going on. They're being accessed by organizations like the NCA. And in terms of military and, this sort of attack, it's not, it's certainly not beyond the bounds of possibility. I think that was always recognized. But the scale of this and the way that it was conducted,
yes,
particularly the way that the Israelis, if it is the Israelis, they haven't admitted it, of course, got inside the supply chain and managed to do what they've done. You have to say, whatever your views of this conflict, it's pretty impressive.
And I guess, Tim, I mean, security-aware organisations across the world will now be very busy looking at their vulnerabilities to this sort of thing and trying to protect themselves.
Yes, they will. I mean, in some respects, it's an extension of what we've been talking about for quite a long time, which is this idea of a grey zone in terms of military operations. Ukraine is clearly, in inverted commas, a traditional fight with a close battle on a front line and deep and rear battles and so on. The grey zone has always been an area where cyber and the use of space and the use of, things like cutting undersea cables and so on is been a reality for quite some time. And we know we're being hacked all the time in terms of computers and so on. So in a way, this is an extension of that. But I do think a lot of people will be thinking, OK, what does that mean for us?
Yes.
Now, we shouldn't take it out of all proportion, because clearly what Hezbollah were using was old technology and technology that was intercepted physically, stuff you could hold in your hand, in order to put probably only a very small amount of explosive, 10 grams or something of HMX. I was a bomb disposal operator in Northern Ireland, and so a very small amount of explosive like this, I know, can do a heck of a lot of damage, particularly if this thing is sitting in your pocket or you've got it in your hand. And I think an awful lot of Hezbollah guys have lost one or if not both their hands as a result of it.
And what about the strategic implications of all of this, Tim? Just from your own point of view, it obviously raises the possibility of a major escalation between Israel and Hezbollah, which in turn could maybe conceivably bring Iran closer into the conflict. What's your thought on that? And if this was done, if these pages now, walkie-talkies have been used in this way, would it have made more military sense to go further and try to decapitate the Hezbollah leadership and take away their capacity to wage war in the way that they were capable?
Well, it may well be that some of their leadership has been decapitated in the context of injuries and deaths and so on. I think from an Israeli point of view, it is pretty difficult to see how you fight these sort of campaigns. First of all, most of the Arab world, of course, is not supportive of Hezbollah any more than it is of Hamas or Iran, because most of their support obviously comes from Iran. And so, notwithstanding what's been going on in Gaza, most of the Arab world have been quite pleased that Hamas is being degraded and that indeed Hezbollah is being degraded. So the chances of this escalating beyond, northern Israel and Lebanon and so forth, my gut instinct is that it's pretty limited chance of it really going beyond that region.
Right.
Now, Israel, of course, could try and move in ground forces into Lebanon, but I think they're very reluctant to do that. And their ability to target individuals in this way, in one sense, is a much better military strategy.
Yes.
It gets criticized, of course, if you go in with air power and cause a lot of additional casualties. This has been very targeted. Clearly, very sadly, there has been children dying and so on, and other people, innocent people, on the margins of this. But taken as a whole, I think from an Israeli point of view, it's been quite a clever move, and I don't see it from a strategic point of view resulting in a broader conflict beyond the boundaries of that particular area.
Yeah, I mean, there are experts saying that Hezbollah does not want an all-out war, massively armed as they are. They're hugely supplied in personnel. Is that simply because if it came to an all-out war, they would lose, that Israel is so much more powerful?
And in a traditional sense, that's absolutely right. I mean, Israel's ability to produce, euphemistically, what we call the fighting power, the ability to put mass and capability, in terms of physical capability, weapons and missiles and aircraft and so on and so forth. Israel is overmatches Hezbollah in every sense of the word. Hezbollah would not be able to withstand a conventional war, if you like. And their ability to move into Israel, other than what they're doing and have been doing for a long time, which is, to use missiles and so forth, again, is very limited. So I think you're right. I don't think either side wants a major land confrontation, as in a traditional sense. But nonetheless, it's very difficult to see how this is going to end, both here and, I have to say, in Gaza too.
Major General Tim Cross, always good to talk to you. Thank you.